Okay, well, I'm going to get started. As some more people come in, I'll just start by introducing myself. My name is Emma Yates. I'm on the HoGood Growth and Innovation team. And I've been at HoGood since early last spring, and it's been so much fun to work in this food space and this food system. The stuff that we're going to talk about today is really what I'm truly passionate about, is improving our impact on the climate through our food system. So I have a background in waste management and specifically the composting industry. So I had a ton of hands-on work and experience in soil science and ensuring that compost is getting into our food system and ensuring that we're getting the proper yields that way. So it's been really cool to connect dots from that very early phase all the way through the food system here. The way that we're going to work through questions today is if I'm talking through something and a question comes up for you, we will answer those at the end of the session. So just send your messages in chat and I'll be running through that before we hop out of there here. And of course, if you want to save any questions privately, you can message me on my email, which I will include at the end of this webinar. So a bit of background about HoGood to show you the lens that I'm really talking through today. So HoGood has been in this global supply system space for the past 15 years. And through this work, they pulled data, our human research team has pulled data from more than 600 data sources. Some of these include Biodiversity International, Fair for Life, UTZ Certified, and many more. Through this process of pulling granular food data, climate data out of these data sources, we've been able to map about 33,000 ingredients, chemicals, and materials in our database. With those food products, we're able to provide data on those 33,000 ingredients for more than 247 sustainability metrics. And on a finished products level, we've assessed more than 2 million products at the UPC level. Now, why are we talking about innovating plant-based products? More than 47% of consumers are now identifying as what is being called flexitarian. Now, a flexitarian is really defined as either a vegan or a vegetarian that allows for flexibility in the types of animal products that they consume. So they may eat animal or meat-based products here and there, but primarily they're plant-based. Consumers more and more are making the shift away from animal-based products into the plant-based space for a variety of reasons. And as they're doing this, these consumers are putting very high expectations on the plant-based space. They want their plant-based products to be more sustainable, more ethical, and if healthier, if not healthiest that they can be. Oops. When these plant-based products are not performing at that level, they're more likely to receive a higher level of criticism than a conventional or an animal-based product. So through this, we'll have a few polls, and you're welcome to participate in the chat or just participate on your own. The first poll that I'm going to ask you guys is, where in the food products life cycle has the greatest impact? Transportation, the farm stage, or packaging? I'll give you guys 10 to 20 seconds to really think on this. Wow, look at everyone. Okay, you guys get it. So most of you answered the farm stage. I'm happy that we're all there. And to really demonstrate this large impact, I love to show this graph. Oftentimes in the CPG space, we see a ton of emphasis on transportation and packaging. And it's understandable because these are very tangible parts of the cycle. And as the consumer, they're seeing the packaging and thinking about how their food got to them physically. But what we're not often thinking about and what we're not often communicating is the very high impact that our farm level is having. So if we're thinking about improving our plant-based products or products in general, while we do need to look at all of these other phases, they're all very important. To have a big impact, we need to start at this farm stage impact. Now, no matter how sustainable your ingredients are, your products still have an impact, whether it's environmental or social. It matters because NASA is reporting, and many other resources are reporting, that our food yields are going to be affected and declining over the next few years, which is a very scary prospect to think about. This is happening because of these temperature shifts, these changing weather and climate patterns, all as a result of these increased concentrations of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. Now, while our food system is at high risk, and we could face some very scary prospects if we do not do something, in the food space, all of us have the ability to really make this change and really fix the way that our food is performing, and fixing that at the ag level. Now, not only is changing our food system important for the environment, it's also beneficial to our business because, of course, we all have to survive financially in this world on a day-to-day basis too. So the Sustainability Index reported by NYU and IRI, has shown that these sustainability marketed products are growing 2.7 times faster than a conventionally marketed product, and 2.1 times faster than the CPG space as a whole. These products have, as you can see, grown since 2015 with a significant increase during and after the pandemic. Psychologist Dr. Chris Bryan in the UK has reported that increasingly we're seeing that these plant-based products are also shifting demand because they're hitting on that price point, the taste point, and the convenience that these consumers need. So we're seeing tons of growth, and it's continuing to get more and more promising for the plant-based industry. Well, if we want to make a change, we need to first assess what is our baseline impact? How do you even figure that out? And what do you even look at to figure out what is the true impact of your products? We have another poll question for everyone. Of these different environmental and social metrics, which is the most important to measure? Greenhouse gas emissions, processing emissions, water use, soil health, labor risk, biodiversity, land use. Let's see what we get here. Okay. Huge variety. A couple who answered correctly, basically all of them, you would be correct. And of course, depending on your business or regulations that you're under or any other internal goals that you have, certain metrics may be more or less important to your company values, the goals you're trying to accomplish. At HoGood, because all of these really come together in many different ways, and it's hard to separate something as being better or worse, we need to look at all of these. So within our platform, we do enable you to look at these core metrics individually, but we ensure that you also get a holistic view so that you can make decisions on a more holistic and regenerative level. So the impact score, which you'll see me refer to, is a holistic impact score. The HoGood impact score uses all 8 of these metrics to give us a thorough view of how an ingredient's impact is impacting the planet and socially too. You'll see also that we're having this red to green scale. Anything that is showing up as red is something that is a little bit more degenerative, taking away from the planet. And something that is towards green is moving towards regenerative, nature positive, something we want to work towards in our food system. Now getting into measuring and innovating your products. There are really 3 main ways to reduce your impact on an ingredient level. The first is to actually change that ingredient, to use ingredient alternatives in the products that you're creating. The second is to change the location that you're sourcing that product from. And the third is to change the egg practices and certifications that you're bringing to those products. So first, we're going to look at ingredient alternatives. We have another poll for you guys. The first poll is, which type of milk uses more water in its farm production? Moringa oat milk, organic cow milk, or conventional cow milk? Give you guys a bit to answer. I lost view of my chat. This one will be good. And thank you for participating, everyone. So we'll look at these 3 different products. We're going to look at the impact score, that holistic impact score, comparing these 8 core metrics. We're going to look at carbon and we're going to look at water. So the first that we're going to look at is this impact score. So on a holistic level, it's probably not surprising that the oat milk is performing higher than the conventional milk. So looking at all of those different metrics on average, the moringa oat milk has less of an impact. Next, we'll look at the carbon footprint. Again, this may not be surprising to you that conventional milk has a slightly higher impact than organic milk, and then a much higher impact than a plant-based product. But on the water use frontage, we'll see that the oat milk is actually much, much higher. To produce an oat milk, we are using a lot more water in the production phase and in the farm phase to bring that milk to your doorstep. So we'll see that conventional milk is, yes, still quite high, and organic milk is not too bad on the waterfront. So this is why looking holistically and maybe not just at the carbon is really helpful in empowering us to make decisions based on the values that we have in our businesses. Next, we're going to look at different types of burgers. Again, we're kind of comparing and contrasting different types of plant-based products with animal products. You'll see again the impact score, carbon footprint, and water use that we will look at this comparison in the next slide. And I wanted to demonstrate here that all of these products are considered finished products. So there are multiple ingredients going into this product to be the whole product. Of course, in this scenario, the cooked beef is introducing the highest level of impact. And we'll get a visual of how these different types of burgers compare and contrast in the next slide. So for this one, we have 2 questions rolled into one. Which burger do you think has the highest carbon impact? And which do you think has the highest water impact? We have a regular beef burger like the one I just showed, the Impossible Burger, Beyond Burger, Mushroom Burger, and a plant-based burger, assuming it's more bean-based. Okay, some great responses. Seems like most are confident that the beef has the highest carbon impact. So we're going to just look at these as a whole as we roll down. So most of you being in this industry were correct on the carbon footprint of a conventional beef burger is quite high, and it does stand to be true here. On the water use, the first time I've looked at these types of comparisons, I was completely surprised to see how much water went into some of these plant-based products. While the carbon footprint is relatively lower, that water use is quite high to produce a kilogram of that product. And again, we'll see the impact score I think it's interesting to note that while this plant-based burger on carbon and water is performing relatively low impact, holistically, there are some other metrics going into this that are introducing a higher risk. That could be labor risk, biodiversity, soil health, or something else that is really bringing that impact score down that you may want to look into depending on your goals and values at your company. Ingredients really do make a big difference. So the mushroom burger was shown previously in the slide that was performing really well. I wanted to take a moment to just show a quick comparison. And when we really look at this from meat to a plant-based product, we can look at this finished product, this Fable mushroom burger, which is an Australian brand, and compare that to the category of meat. So this is compiling all of the data that we have for meats in our database. And this is a really great way to showcase your products versus a specific category that you may be competing against. And this is performing well. We want to be able to showcase these types of differences to our consumers as well. Then next, we're going to look at location. So this is very interesting as well. When we look at the same ingredient, we're looking at wheat in this scenario, and we look at it from 3 very different locations geographically, we'll see a lot of different data. First of all, global emissions factors are very common to use when analyzing the footprint of ingredients and products. These global emissions factors are assigned to that singular crop, no matter where it's grown, what practices are going on. They've pulled together some sort of global average standard for that crop. Now, when we look at what's actually going on the ground and we apply data around climate practices, regulations, and more, we'll see that these emissions factors vary greatly. And as a decision maker, I think it can be important to note that this could be the difference between your ability to talk positively about your products or your ability to say anything at all. This could be the difference between changing your sourcing or not, or how your reporting looks in general. We can look a bit closer at the United States and looking at just different states for this week. Again, we're looking at the same global emissions factor, 0.71 across the board. In a lot of databases, that is the number applied to wheat. When we actually look at what's going on the ground, we're seeing a completely different story for the emissions factors occurring here. This is a huge, huge difference from that global emissions factor. And in most cases, wheat is a large volume of a lot of products, recipes. So this can make a big impact on how your product appears that it is actually performing. I'll just show you a few more comparisons in a similar format as before, looking at that impact score, that holistic score with all of those 8 core metrics, carbon footprint, and water use. So we'll see 2 types of quinoa. If we're looking at the impact score alone, they're not much different. But when looking at the carbon and water usage, we're seeing some larger variables going on there. Same with chickpeas, where there is a greater variation on the impact score. Specifically, we can look at the chickpeas in Australia have a very high water use. And lastly, look at the pinto beans in the USA and Canada and look at the variations going on here. Excuse me, I have some allergies right now. The last section we're going to look at is certifications. So when we're thinking about certifications, these certifications are typically targeting a specific part of the supply system. So at HoGood, when we are overlaying a certification onto an ingredient in that location that it's being purchased from, we're looking at the specific metric that that location or that certification is impacting. In the case of a Fair Trade International, the metric that's being impacted is labor risk. Excuse me. In the case of organic certifications, we're seeing soil health, biodiversity, and animal welfare impact. For your patients. Ooh. And in the regenerative organic view, we can look at a more holistic metric impact across multiple metrics within the system. Now, when we get into how does this actually work in practice, we'll get into the platform to see how can we make these changes to our products. Now I'm going to go to this honey nut cereal as if we're an R&D team innovating and potentially changing this product based on those different variables that we looked at, location and ingredient alternatives. Now we'll see here some familiar metrics. Up at the top, we have the HoGood impact score, as we looked at before. Again, just to reiterate, I think I saw this pop up in the chat. The HoGood impact score uses all 8 of these core metrics listed here, combines them together into a score out of 100, weighted out of 100. Scores them out of 10 and weighted out of 100. My apologies. So the impact score is there, and we'll see carbon footprint on a farm-to-farm gate and carbon footprint on an annual basis, bringing in sales data. Again, we'll see more granular information on a per ingredient basis at the bottom here. So let's say we're an R&D team and we want to potentially innovate this finished product. In this product, the oat flour by volume is the largest contributor. In this case, it's about 65% of the recipe. So what we can do here is actually see if there's any potential ingredient alternatives that we can use to improve the impact of this product. Let's try a cassava flour. On the cassava flour change, we see slight increases across greenhouse gas emissions, soil biodiversity, and land use, but we see an increased risk in labor risk exposure. Let's try another ingredient alternative. Camarillo flour. We're seeing raw greenhouse gas emissions improve, soil biodiversity improve, labor risk, biodiversity, and land use. Overall, introducing this product versus the oat flour improves our overall impact. And instead of Canada, we're going to change that to New Zealand. And we see an overall improvement in our impact score and our carbon footprint. And you'll see the metrics that were improved here. Next, we're going to look at changing the sourcing location of our sugar. Can we make any minor changes without actually changing the formulation of our product to improve the overall impact? So instead of sourcing this sugar from Dominican, let's see if we can find a better location. In this case, changing from the Dominican to Florida has improved our water use, soil biodiversity, labor risk, and land use. We'll see how the impact score, the holistic score, again, increased. And here we'll see how these metrics increased across the board. Now, as a professional, we can't just make these changes and they're set in stone. We do understand that these are big decisions that are made internally, and they're often not taken lightly, and a lot of planning goes into this. We do recognize that, and we like to point out that there are many ways that you can interpret the true benefit of making these changes. One way we like to do so is to actually look at and potentially quantify those metric differences that you are improving. So in that ingredient alternative case where we changed the oat flour to Camarillo flour, we were able to mitigate risk by 385 meters squared land save per ton of sourced ingredient. In the case of the sugar, with the simple location change, this could be a vendor change or something similar, we were able to change the high-risk water use and avert a huge risk there as well. Depending on how you're operating, these can all be quantified in different ways, depending on how you value the cost and the risks here. So when we work towards innovating towards these more nature positive food systems, of course, we can mitigate or avoid these supply system risks in your own value chain, or at least have more options. You can quantify and qualify your sustainability differentiators to retailers or to your consumers. And when you're doing this, you're enabling your consumers to purchase in alignment with their values and ensuring that you're straying away from that higher risk of criticism. And of course, this can also lead to a positive impact to your bottom line. We love to see both happening for our customers. I think we have plenty of time for questions at the end, so I will start to work through those. Just wanted to provide you guys with my email here if you guys have any questions, but I will start getting into the chat. So Meredith, I see you asked a question about what climate and environmental data you are using. At the beginning, I kind of just worked through quickly where HoGood gets our data from. We're pulling from more than 600 data sources. These are published LCAs, government assessments, and other public materials. These are regularly updated, and depending on the ingredient or the metric that we're looking at, the database for that or the data source for that could vary. Would I eat a mushroom burger, Nicholas? Yes, I do like mushroom burgers. Let's see. What is the cause in different amounts of water usage? So depending on the crop, different crops require different amounts of water at the farm level to be used to actually grow that crop to be harvested. Additionally, different locations. So California versus, let's say, Florida is going to have a higher risk water metric just because of the climate in that location. We're adjusting for water scarcity as well as taking into account what that crop needs to grow. I see that Eva answered my question to Meredith in there. Let's see. All 8 parameters are for the impact score are weighted equally. We're not weighting any heavier than the others. Meredith, the location, whether it varies from a country, state, a regional level, yes, we do understand there's massive differences, even farm to farm, but in general, getting as granular as we can on that location basis in some situations per state is extremely granular. And if you are calculating the emissions factors of your ingredients down to the state or regional level, you are going to be 99.9% more granular than most of the CPG system. Maybe one day we'll get down to that farm level as remote sensing technology continues to increase and becomes more accessible. For now, we're working at these more regional, state, and in the case of maybe a CPG not knowing, country levels as well. Anyone from HoGood? I don't know if I've missed any big questions here. It looks like we've worked through most of them. Any more questions? I'll give you guys another minute or so to type your thoughts in here. All right, well, I really appreciate all of your time today. If you have any questions that come up later as you are reflecting on all of the stuff we went over today, please feel free to reach out to me at emma@hogood.com. Follow us on LinkedIn. We host tons of webinars and exciting events involving CPGs, retailers, suppliers. If any of you guys are going to be at Expo West, I hope to see you next week in person. Come by our booth 1906 and say hi to us.